So today I'm also going to be working on this next epoxy pour, and I'm going to be treating and getting ready for the underbelly, where I'm going to be doing these two voids. So I'm going to basically be mounting little pieces of melamine to the bottom of this, and you trace it with caulk. You stick your boards on there, you re-caulk them again, and then you basically take the junk out of them. So I'm going to do that. This is interesting. This is a big sag here from the epoxy here for this pour. This pour actually gave me a really hard time because it was leaking. I hadn't sealed it off all properly, but these all look really good. So, but I'm going to basically get some pieces of the melamine, and I just figured I was originally going to do a massive, and I was like, but you know what? These are such really on the other underbelly. These are pretty small that I can make them in such a way that I just cut out a little piece, and then I cut another, basically like this. So I'm just gonna cut one, which would fit right there. And I basically, what I'll just do is I'll eyeball, I want some overlap. This is the furthest point, so let's just say this will be one cut here, and that piece will go right over here. And then that second piece will actually fit really well. So I'm gonna go over here and chop this real quick. One of my big pet peeves about this shop is that I have I don't have a 220 outlet, and so half the time when I use this, I pop the breaker. So here's to hoping I don't pop the breaker, and I need my protection. All right, got my eyes and ears on so I don't get in trouble. Alright, now that I got both pieces, we'll come back over here and basically begin gluing these up. So next is I'll have my silicone, and I'll put a bead over that, and then squish that up. And actually, I could almost make that smaller, but it doesn't really matter. And this will just go, and there's a little bit of a flatness issue because of some of this epoxy pushing over here. But that's okay because there'll be all that caulk to let that settle in. So I don't want to put my ears on. So let me do this. Basically, bead this off here because we don't want any. Oh, I got some old stuff. I didn't cap that right. Tisk tisk. Should tape that off. That's a no-no. There we go. Basically, we don't want any of this epoxy to leak. So we want to make sure. That this just really gets to soak in there, and because epoxy, just like water, will eventually find its way out if you don't seal it off properly. You want to make sure you seal it off properly. Just like this one the other day, this one squeezed out, and there's just like a little tumor right here. So we want to make sure that doesn't happen. Now expect that there'll be obviously some height variation here because the epoxy will cure up to there. Even once you've poured the board down and pushed the board down, it still will have some height difference, but that's okay. You can sand that off or plane it off if you're brave. a lot of times I try to do my best to only sand my epoxy off because I had a DeWalt table hand electric planer that when I messed this pour up last year, I used my hand planer to plane it off, but the epoxy ended up ruining the engine, the mechanics of the tool. So I've been so sketched out to use it since then. So now we're just gonna push this down. All right, uno. And dos. Now hopefully there's no there's no squeeze out inside, but if there is, whatever. And now what I'm also gonna do is I'm going to have to caulk this entire thing because we want to be super duper safe. So I'm just hitting a real fine bead of this clear silicone caulk all the way across here. I don't want to have to clean up any mess. Had a good day at church today. I got to preach at my church today and had a great time in the Word. Back here, oh, go around. Alright, so next is I'm going to tape this because I don't want this to move. So let me go find some tape. Ah! My tape. Just tape the bejeebers out of this thing because you don't want it to move. So, yeah, bear with me when I do a whole bunch of taping. So you can fast forward to the good stuff, but I'm just going to let this thing run. So, and I'm also, just so you know, I'll do a different video when I do the pour here. But I really want to make sure that my depth is on my pour is not too deep because with the total boat epoxy, what I found is that depth is an issue. This is more made for lamination, you know, just you're coating something. That's why it's called total boat epoxies, because it's for boats. So when you do a really, really thick pour over an inch, really, you know, you see these guys doing these 2-3 inch pours, like these Black Forest guys. They're using epoxy, and epoxy is made to do thicker pours, and for the heat to not freak out. So just be careful when you're doing pours to not pour too deep. It's always better to just do more than one. You know, what's the rush? Even if you got a client, you know, you're commissioning this table or whatever, it's still, listen, you don't want to spend an extra, you know, $200–300 on epoxy after you blew it, because you, like me, and this was last year, I did this whole thing. I poured this whole thing in one shot in the middle of the summer. I had no experience with epoxy, and I'm still barely do. But I literally, the entire thing just about caught on fire, and it smoked and cracked and moved, and I had to cut and chisel this whole piece out, and probably blew about $100–150 of epoxy, and freaked me out so bad that I didn't go back to epoxy until now. So, but I was so determined. I really wanted to figure it out because I do think it's kind of a new thing, you know, and it's obviously super trendy, and so, you know, that's okay, but I really wanted to kind of get it down to where at least I could do patches. I don't ever think I would be doing ginormous tables with, you know, 50 gallons of epoxy. That's just thousands and thousands of dollars. So, but this kind of stuff is awesome. This coffee table is not bought yet, so it's been nice to just take my time and be able to learn how to use epoxy, learn how to mix it, learn how to do the different pigment colors and stuff like that. So it's really been a lot of fun. So anyway, almost done here, still on time. Stuck my finger in my stick cock. All right, well, that looks pretty stinking stable to me. And next I'll cut the camera and I'll do another clip here probably because it takes me forever to do all the epoxy stuff. But hope you guys are having fun, learning something, and I'm brand new to the YouTube world, and I just figured, you know, I had enough people saying, dude, you gotta do a YouTube channel, man. And I figured, you know what, I'm already out here, right? So I might as well just film it and make some friends along the way. So, I'm sick, whatever. So all right, that's basically treating the underbelly. And now we'll flip this over. I'm gonna work up the epoxy, and I'm mixing black diamond. I'll show you these. I'm mixing these two, the blue and green and the cobalt blue here, really kind of give it a little beautiful tropical look against the cherry, using the Total Boat epoxy. And the bumblebee flying in here, sweet. So I'm gonna mix that up and then we'll take another shot. So stick around. So again, I'm gonna use some of this car wax stuff here to treat the underbelly here, so that way it doesn't stick. And I'll just pop right off here when I'm done. This is looking great. Right. That's good there. This seems nice. It kind of goes right back in there. Super convenient. Okay, well, I'm going to start mixing up some epoxy. So I've got my epoxy filled up here. I'm using, oh, how many ounces is this? This is 20 ounces exactly of epoxy. And basically gonna start with this. That's all dried epoxy on there. You wanna give it a good mix. And what you wanna look for is these little strings. There's these little strings that you can see if you could get closer. You basically wanna make sure it's perfectly clear. There's no more little strings. Good tip is too, you want to make sure you don't just add your pigment in here first. You want to make sure that you mix it first fully clear, because that way you can actually see if it's finished. And again, when you can tell it's finished or not is if there's no more, there's these little strings, they almost look like hairs that are in there. Those are the resin and the epoxy still blending together. So you want to make sure there's no hairs in there, which are these little strands of basically the epoxy not fully mixed. So you wouldn't be able to tell that, obviously, if there was pigment in there. So you want to make sure it's nice and clear, and then you add your pigment, and then you give it another good mix. And what's important too is making sure that you wipe the sides because there might be resin and hardener off on the sidelines, and you want to make sure all of that's in place, so to speak, because or else it won't mix properly, right? There'll be an imbalanced ratio. So make sure that's getting all the way. You can kind of scoop the bottom, kind of get it up, and then, you know, get that off of there. Do one more little one, and then we'll add the pigments here. And get as much off as I can there. And like I said again, we're gonna be using these two, but mainly the blue-green. So I just want to add a little bit of the cobalt blue. These come in little variety packs on Amazon. And now for the blue-green, which is really what I like for this kind of color combination. Just gonna look outrageous. I want to use obviously a more dominant amount of that. All right. Now for the beautiful part. Get some of that excess off there and whip it around like that. If you want to be cool, I'm gonna just drape that right over. I have a little trash can over there. I'm draping that over, and well, here goes nothing. Let me make sure I'm filming before I just have this paranoia that I'm not recording. Good, I am. You can hear my kids screaming inside. So this is gonna look so beautiful. All right, here we go. The moment of truth. So we'll start with this one. And again, we're not going to be doing the full thing. I'll probably just fill it up a little bit. But I do not want to risk having these overheat. Over here, do the same. Trying to put in some color or some variations in the pattern here, because I'm starting to learn what patterns it keeps when you pour it, but it basically seems that it does keep the patterns that you pour, almost like a latte. And then I'm also gonna, I don't want to actually do that yet because I still gotta treat this. That's okay. This one's a little low here, so I'm gonna top that off. There's a couple little pieces where that didn't sit 100%. And then I'm also gonna pour, this was that sleeper hole that really gave me a run for my money. And it's still nice. Okay, well, this looks great. I'm gonna be careful how much I'm using here, but I don't really want to use too much more because I just don't want it to overheat. The moment you see that smoke going, you gotta hit some fans, and I have my fan actually set up right over here. I'm gonna turn that on as soon as I'm done here. So I'm gonna just give it a light torch. But since there's a couple layers, I don't wanna really give it too much of a hit because I don't wanna risk, again, it overheating. So here's for my first pour. So I got the fan going here a little bit, and I just want to kind of get in here, mix this up a little bit, see if it'll take any cool form upon drying. But obviously this is multiple layers, but this is also the bottom, so both places. So that's good. So that's a little bit less, you know, it's about a ½ an inch of a pour, which is great because right now we have no overheating. When I did that inch pour, I really had some serious overheating, and I had to get those fans directly on this. So mesmerizing, huh? You just can stare at this all day. Whoever gets this piece is gonna be super, super lucky because I want to keep it for myself. Oh, that's beautiful. Real quick passes, don't, especially when you're using MAP gas, do not sit on an area or it'll start smoking, and again, you don't want that. So, and then I use some of the leftover because I've just been plugging all these little holes and all that good stuff. So this is, we're all done for today. Thanks for watching, you guys. Hope you liked the video. Hit subscribe if you like, and have more content for you guys.